I call the Agriculture, Finance, and Policy Committee meeting to order on March 5th, 2024. There is a quorum present. First, we'll do with approval of minutes. Vice Chair Purcell, do we have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move the minutes from, that was February 29th, 2024.
All right, Representative Purcell moves the approval of minutes for February 29, 2024. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the minutes for February 29, 2024 are approved. We'll do bill hearings first, and we'll start with two of my bills, and Vice Chair with the gavel.
Representative Vang, when you are ready, you may move your bill before the committee.
All right, so move, Madam Chair.
So we are beginning with House File 4547. Representative Vang has moved this before the committee. And go ahead and present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. As you all may know, I am the original author of this program that was created a few years ago. The intent of this program is to help farmers who experience the greatest barrier towards land access. This is especially true for small producers. Many of these small producers often rent land, and depending on how long their lease is, if they're not exploited, also determines what types of crops they're able to grow and make their farm profitable. Oftentimes, these small producers are specialty crop farmers. If their lease runs too short, they aren't able to grow a more profitable produce like strawberries and certain types of cherries. Specialty crop producers are also more likely to experience challenges to finding loans and resources to purchase land, simply because they are just a small producer, and the return of investments from banks aren't appealing. House File 4547 is meant to clarify language and legislative intent. It eliminates emerging farmers and instead replaces it with USDA definition of specialty crop and includes hemp and cannabis as a specialty crop under this definition. And it also prioritizes applicants whose gross sales are no more than $100,000. It also prohibits a farmer from using this grant to buy from their immediate family, for example. If you are a farmer's son, you can't use this grant to purchase from your father. I'm aware of the concerns surrounding this program, and this bill is meant to clarify the purpose of this program to serve farmers with the greatest need, who are often small producers of specialty crop and struggle to have access to long-term land, but will eventually want to own their own small plot to build a profitable farm. I think this bill is more straightforward, members, and continues to meet our legislative intent to identify farmers who have the greatest need for land. And with that, Madam Chair, we can do our testimonies next or open for discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Representative Vang. Our first testifier, Levi Wellborn. If you may approach the table if you are here. Given this. Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Hello, yes, my name is Levi Wellborn. I first want to thank you all for having me here. I am Levi Wellborn. I am the Regional Food Systems Coordinator with the Latino Economic Development Center located in St. Paul. I would like to speak for our organization and then later on speak about my own existing experience as an emerging farmer. But here at LEDC, we help hundreds of small Latino-owned businesses started or expanding their businesses throughout Minnesota. Our organization focuses on cultivating and thriving communities through planting seeds of financial freedom and for future generations of Latinos. We strive to build access to capital markets, technical assistance, business development opportunities to provide these best long-term successes for our communities. The ways that we have been able to utilize this capital and continuing to go against the biggest barriers for our clients is to start to expand through this grant. So within our history, within the last 5 years, we were able to successfully help 46 agricultural loans worth of $1.3 million to 36 individual emerging farmers. We have, since 2014, we have been active as authorized lenders for the Rural Finance Authority, the RFA of Minnesota, for a microloan program and accessed almost $200,000 through this program. And in 2020, we distributed $340,000 of MDA CARES of Act funding to 47 BIPOC farmers and over 133 BIPOC agricultural workers. So just to really clarify the importance of this grant and what it means to our BIPOC farmers is really being able to expand this work within what we do at LEDC. But I also would like to speak, which I do most better on, is from the heart as an aspiring emerging farmer. So again, I would like to introduce myself separate from my organization as Levi Wellborn. I'm a proud Afro-Latino, indigenous, queer, and disabled farmer. This work here changes lives, changes our communities. I grew up with farmers on both sides of my Dominican family, also on my white side of the family, who are farmers that grew up on the rural side. They are also military family who owned land. I have these same conversations with them about the importance and the barriers that we have. So I love to bring up, the privileges that we have of owning land, accessing this land, and how this needs to go to our BIPOC farmers. So I really want to testify of the importance of not taking away emerging farmers from this grant and the language from it, because it erases us from the history of it. It doesn't just start from this grant, it's for every grant moving forward. Emerging farmers as a whole is how we make a difference, and not only for the generations now and moving forward, but healing the generations that demanded and worked this and steward this land throughout history. So I always like to have the acknowledgement that we are on Dakota land, and then black and brown workers have forward this land moving forward. And I see the farmers around me that I've worked with this land. Our hands have been in the soil together, and I continue to see that work that we will be doing here, especially seeing the black and brown and Latino community here. I want us to be in more of these spaces, but especially, I know that you hear a lot of our voices, and I just want to look at each and one of y'all before I leave about just how important this is for our future, for our children, but for the fact that this land we've been fighting for generations. And I don't want to keep fighting inch by inch. I want us to see this and be solidarity through each other in ways that we can make this accessible for all. So thank you for this time. I really appreciate it. I hope to be in this room again with all of you. And thank you for the work that you do within agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wellborn. The next testifier is Taylor Olson. Please make your way to the stand. And identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. I'm Taylor Olson. I'm a Minneapolis resident and aspiring farmer. I've spent the past few seasons working at farms in the Twin Cities areas, and I'm currently taking the Farm Beginnings course through Land Stewardship Project in preparation of starting my own farm. As I take these steps to have my own farm and become a farmer, I applied for and was selected for the down payment assistance grant this past summer. Ultimately, I was unable to use it because of timeline and personal circumstances, but it was something that brought a lot of hope and joy in a otherwise daunting and pretty discouraging land access journey. While I was disappointed that I wasn't able to use the funds myself, I felt gratitude knowing that another emerging farmer would be on the wait list, ready to receive those funds and move forward with their journey. It, again, just like brings me hope knowing that for this round, somebody that is a farmer of color, a woman, other young emerging farmer would be able to utilize the grant. And it further just solidified what we're seeing in the agriculture census that was just released, showing that Minnesota is making strides in having the emerging farmers grow when that's not something we're seeing nationwide. In addition to my personal experiences, I'm a member of the Land Stewardship Project's Land Access and Emerging Farmers Policy Working Group. We're a group of 12 emerging and established farmers, and we're working to get more farmers on the land through public policy. We believe that this is a critical nation-leading program, and it should be targeted to those who would otherwise not be able to obtain land. We are troubled by the pending lawsuit and ultimately find it a distraction that causes us to point fingers rather than working together across identity to ensure that all beginning farmers have the resources they need through our state budget and the next farm bill. When funding's limited, as is the case with this program, we need to ensure that we are prioritizing those who have historically been discriminated against, who have been impacted by stolen land and labor, and lack generational land, capital, and wealth. Protecting the inclusion of emerging farmers is critical. While our working group is excited about the specialty crop producers being prioritized, many other emerging farmers have been left out in the new language, particularly those who want to raise poultry and livestock. In the face of climate and water quality crises, it's important to get more farmers on the land who are regeneratively raising poultry and livestock with perennial pasture and managed grazing. We ask that the committee extends eligibility to specialty crop producers while maintaining inclusion of livestock producers. And again, I just want to really drive home the point that we all benefit from prioritizing emerging farmers, and by diversifying our farming population, we will build a more resilient, just, and sustainable farm and food system. Because of this, we would ask that the committee maintains inclusion within the statute language of emerging farmers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, Nura Ahmed and Fario Khalif. Please make your way to the stand. Okay, if they are not present, Zoe Holloman, Executive Director of Midwest Farmers of Color Collective. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And let us know your name on the record and proceed with your testimony.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the committee chair, Vang, and members of the committee, especially to those who listen to the needs of marginalized, in particular, farmers of color. My name is Zoe Holloman. I use she and they. I'm a farmer of color in Annandale, Minnesota, with Root Springs Cooperative. We're in Wright County. I am also the executive director of the Midwest Farmers of Color Collective, over 130 urban, rural, and suburban farmers in Minnesota and surrounding states, working for racial equity in our food and farming systems. We host social and educational events, do political education, gather priorities from farmers in the state and region, and work with allied organizations to advocate for a more fair and equal and sustainable food system and for food sovereignty. And I'm heartened to see many of our friends and allies in this room. Land access is the main priority our farmers have voiced over the past couple of years since we founded the organization. over 2/3 of the farmers in our network don't own the land that they farm. Investing in land you don't own is a risky and at times completely disappointing and extractive situation for many farmers of color. In many cases, our farmers have lost investments after a couple of years of compost, of soil implements, of fencing, of their labor and time, and they don't get any compensation for that from the landowner when the land is sold and they have to find another place to farm. We desperately need land tenure. We are climate change mitigators. We are farmers who tend to practice sustainable farming, and that is something that Minnesota and everyone living here needs. So we ask for your thought about that as well. So for all of these reasons, we advocated in support for the down payment assistance program with Chair Vang and all of our partners. We think this is a good idea because it aims to help under-resourced farmers who don't have land or financial privilege for themselves or in their families. Surveys from the National Young Farmers Coalition and the Emerging Farmer Reports from the state show the significance of emerging and BIPOC farming population, as well as the lack of significant resources to start and maintain successful businesses. So last year, we joined with our allies and advocated to increase the amount of the fund, to lengthen the application window, to prioritize BIPOC farmers, since we heard that only 33% of the recipients from the first year were categorized as emerging and BIPOC farmers. And also to do data collection for reporting and tracking to see who is receiving the funds. What type of emerging farmers they are for. We really want to make sure that the fund goes to the people that it was meant to, right? So out of the amendments that we see, we would like to see the emerging farmer and BIPOC farmer prioritization language kept in statute. This is because the track record of state agencies to get equal resources to BIPOC farmers versus mainstream European descended farmers is, so the baby booming generation is just not good. We are concerned about that, as well as current day attacks on racial equity measures, like we saw in response to the American Recovery Act, the debt relief for BIPOC farmers at the national level, and recently with the Pacific Legal Foundation, the California-based conservative legal group that recruited a Minnesota-based farmer to apply for the grant in August of 2023, and then once he was denied, sued the MDA. These tactics to go after meager racial equity measures are appalling, considering the long history this country has of extracting from BIPOC people and giving to European descended people. Some examples are the Homestead Act, the GI Bill, heirs property issues, the CARES Act, as well as corporate ag welfare. We feel these attacks are both racially motivated and attempts to attack a new generation of sustainable growers who choose to grow healthy food for local communities without the chemical pesticide industry. We would like to see more trust built with our BIPOC farming organizations and state agencies like the MDA and with legislators like yourselves. We do not have that trust built yet. So we are asking you to include the emerging farmer and BIPOC farmer prioritization in the statute of the bill and conduct demographic reporting so that we can track who the fund is benefiting.
Ms. Holloman, if you can wrap up your testimony.
Sure. We definitely want to support the down payment assistance grants with the emerging and BIPOC farmer prioritization. Thank you again, all of you, for your time and your work. Have a good day.
Thank you. And our last pair of testimonies, we've got the testifiers who weren't here previous are available. So if Fario Khalif and Nura Ahmed, please approach the stand, introduce yourself for the record, and proceed with your testimony. Hello, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just walked down here, so let me breathe.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, please. Again, thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Farhio Khalif. I am with Somali American Farmers Institute, SAFI, and I am here today to talk to you about the struggle for the emerging farmers and in support the bill number
4547.
House file number 4547. I'm here in support of that bill. And as an immigrant farmer who I've been farming here for the last 7 years, I want to talk about when I first started. My uncle Muhammad was a farmer back home where I grew up in Somalia. And as he continued farming here, he had the opportunity learning how to do the soil and the land and getting to know the Minnesotan way, how to farm and to become a farmer, coming from as an immigrant farmer. I'm grateful to him because in 2017, as I continued to farm and bring the youth and the elder, the African immigrant to his farm, I learned that he was not just went out and just got his own farm, but he was educated and learned through Big River Farm, the food group farm program, where he told me, I can help you. I'm 80 years old. You grew up around me back home. Your father and all of us was farmers back home. As a little girl, I remember you were coming out the farm, but today we're a different world. And because of his education, for 4 to 5 years being with Big River Farm, he took me over there back in 2019. And he said, you can always come to the farm here in Hutchinson and continue your love and advocating for the women and the youth in the community. But also, I want you to learn a different way. I want you to learn the way I learned, and maybe you figured it out because I'm too old right now. So that's when I become more interested. I created SAFI, Somali American Farmers Institute, in 2017, and then I signed up the program at the Big River Farm. But at the time, as I'm continuing working with Big River Farm, I also was trained by Women Environmental Institute, WEI, and Karen Clark, who also been very helpful to the immigrant and the PIPA. When I say the immigrant, and not only the African immigrant, I'm talking about the Latinos, the Monk, and the Native Americans. But today, you have the opportunity, members. You see me here before. I testified many times before at the farming, but today I'm asking you again and again and again. When it comes to the emerging farmers and immigrant farmers, we are really struggling when it comes to land access. We are very grateful programs such as Land Stewardship Project, and you just heard about Zoe, who was just testifying and talking about the struggle and the injustice that we go through when it comes to the immigrant and African farmers and all farmers. So today, I'm hoping that you guys will consider and continue in giving the down payment program that I'm grateful that our Representative Vang spearheaded on that. I really appreciate that, and Representative Vang, for your support of the immigrant farmers. And also, not only 4547, but all bills that is here, all farmers. All farmers, the state of Minnesota needs the support, but you have the opportunity today, because if you pass this year, what you have last year was historic, right? What you have today, again, historic, but you're not guaranteed what you're gonna have next year. I don't know if you guys are gonna be all sitting here next year. So the justice that we're asking for, as an immigrant and emerging farmers, we are asking for you continuing support. If you don't, we're not here to threaten anybody, but we are watching you guys. We are struggling. Please support the Land Stewardship Project, the food group Emerging Farmers, Women Environmental Institute, Midwest of, Zoe, you gotta correct me on this. Midwest, how do you say the full name?
Oh, Midwest Farmers of Color Collective.
That's it. Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Any question, any comment? But other than that, please do consider supporting emerging farmers, the state front. And I don't want to forget to thank our Commissioner Peterson and his assistant and Bailey, who are very much strongly supporting the emerging farmers. And we really appreciate, Commissioner, when you stopped by last year, Big River Farm, and took the tour and getting to know all those farmers at the Big River Farm, more than 25 immigrant farmers, day to day working full-time, but then again, working full-time. We really appreciate you for your taking the time into meeting with us. Again, thank you for the time, and for me to say what I have to say, please support this bill 4547. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khalif. Are there any other folks interested in testifying on behalf of this bill, House File 4547 before us? Seeing no additional testifiers, we will open up to discussion of the bill. Lead Anderson, did you want to start off?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I think her name was Zoe, the one that was up here before. I just had a question to ask her, Madam Chair, if she could come back up.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record again, please.
My name is Zoe Holloman. I'm the Executive Director of Midwest Farmers of Color Collective. Hi.
Thank you. Lead Anderson.
So a question and a comment. I didn't quite catch all you said. You mentioned farmers of European ancestry, and then closely after that you said not good. Could you clarify that statement for me?
Yeah, that was in
Holloman?
reference. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't always remember the etiquette of how to. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was referring to the disproportionate amount of resources that have gone to European descended farmers, primarily in the baby boomer generation, but also today, that we've seen through the CARES Act and other federal and state programs that tend to go to farmers that that already as a group have more resources than BIPOC farmers. And that is what I was saying was not good track record of state agencies and federal agencies that are supposed to support farmers.
Lead Anderson.
And then one final a question. You also talked about corporate ag welfare. And I would just ask you to describe today's bill, where we will be awarding grants of $15,000 to those successful recipients, $15,000 of state money. How does that differ from corporate ag welfare?
Ms. Holloman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Corporate ag welfare is, I mean, it happens a lot where our tax dollars go to larger corporations, ag corporations, large scale farms, and instead of food growers of color and small scale sustainable growers. I mean, it's not really debatable. It's a fact of our how we spend agricultural resources in the country and then also in this state.
Lead Anderson.
But I guess my point is, whether it comes from Washington or comes from St. Paul, we're trying to help people that need the help. And I take a little bit of disagreeing with your characterization of what I'd say production agriculture as being corporate ag welfare when we're trying to help all farmers here. And again, farming is for everybody. And when we single people out, I think it can create conditions that don't call for harmonious, feelings of we're all in this together. And I just feel that we're all farmers, a lot of farmers here together. And when we single groups out, and I don't know if you'd call corporate ag welfare a disparaging term, I kind of take it that way, that I just have some trouble with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have trouble with it too. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to wait till the chair. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Ms. Hallman, if you have a final thought, we have other folks who have questions on the bill as well.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we also have a hard time with it as well. But the reality is that a disproportionate amount of resources go to the larger scale farms in this state. And we don't think that that is a good thing. So we have to talk about it every time we get the opportunity. We are very happy if the legislators would continue to think about how to make resource allotments for farmers of color that would make things more fair and equal. But until that happens, you know, we have the kind of reality that we have today, which is a disproportionate amount of resources going to a specific group of farmers, which are predominantly European descended.
Thank you, Ms. Hellman.
Thank
A
you.
final comment, Lead Anderson.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Just another quick question. If this were Disneyland and we had all the money available that we had at our disposal, would you be in favor of anybody who applied for this program? I think last year there were well over 100 who applied. I don't know how many actually got grants. Would you be in favor of anybody who applied being eligible to get a grant such as this?
I just want to make sure, I don't know if Chair Vang would like to comment since this is her bill, and I'm not totally sure how on topic we have gotten on the merits of the bill itself. Chair Vang, would you care to comment?
Representative Anderson, would you like me to answer your question, or are you
Yeah,
referring to?
yeah.
Madam Chair and Representative Anderson, you know, as I said earlier in my testimony, that this is a popular and meaningful program. Yet we need to make sure that we prioritize farmers with the greatest need. As we all know, not all farmers are all the same. And so therefore, with this bill, clarifying language to specialty crop producers, who are often also small producers, will make sure that the need is met.
Representative Sentimura.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank you, Chair Vang, first for all the work that you've put into creating this program. And I do, want to say that I trust the work that you have done with this, and I trust that you see this, as a fix to be able to save and maintain this program. But I do think it's just important for our committee to kind of back up a little bit and talk about like why are we prioritizing emerging farmers in the first place, and why have we had that term? And I think about this summer, some of the farm tours that I know many of us were on. I think about, we went to Naima's farm, who was a farmer who told us about having to move to, multiple land, and she was still on land that she rented from it, and finally was going to be able to farm, I think, this next season on land that she finally owned. And to me, as someone, who doesn't come from a farming background, that was really just kind of incredible, the amount of energy and effort and investment people are putting into land that they actually don't own. I mean, that is so many resources, so much time that you're not getting to benefit from for generations, which I think is what we all want for the farmers that we want to support on this committee. So I really believe in kind of the goals of the Emerging Farmer Office. I believe in the goals that this program had. I think, if this is a way to continue to be able to maintain the program, then let's do it. But let's not forget, why we did decide to bring things like, are you a first generation farmer? Are you a person of color? Are you younger into this conversation? Because those are the people that are continually coming to us and saying, we are having trouble getting land access. We have had to rent for generations. We have to rent and we have to bring water from the city to our farm. All sorts of things that I think everyone on this committee can say, like, that's not what we want for people. I think to your question, Lead Anderson, 66 of 172 applications were funded last year, so there's definitely a bigger need. I think we could talk, I think, as a committee about how do we maybe in future years, or maybe this year, be able to fund the program more so that more people are being able to benefit. But I just think it is really wrong to kind of drill down and say that this focus on emerging farmers is the issue, because I just don't think it is. Thank you.
Additional discussion? Representative Chong?
Yeah, I just want to make some comments and remarks, and thanks for, continuing to work on this bill. I remember when my parents came to America, and on your point there, we were farming probably, an acre of land. And we did have to portage water from our house to our little 1 acre, which was probably like 20 miles away because we didn't have access to water, right? And so my parents, for almost 10 years, farmed on this 1 acre here in St. Paul, and they would push the water from our house, you know, and that was an enormous task. And so when I think about this program, Sam, and I think about what you're trying to do here, I like the merits of it, and, you know, please continue the work. Thank you.
Further discussion to the bill? Seeing none, Representative Vang moves House File 4547 to be laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill. And the bill is laid over. The next bill before us, House File 3763. Representative Vang, when you are ready, please move your bill. If you are leaving the room, please do so quietly so we can attend to the rest of our business. And House File 3763 is being considered to be moved on to the Ways and Means Committee. Is that correct, Representative Vang?
Yes, so move, Madam Chair. So members, last year, House File 3763, Agri had a sunset date, which meant that Agri will have no base funding in fiscal year 26-27. And since then, we resolved that by repealing the sunset for Agri and funded our priorities. However, the budget targets were not enough to keep Agri whole. Thus, House File 3763 will bring Agri's base back to its original base. And that's an increase of 1.2 or about 1.3 million per year before we have to, back to where we had to deal with the sunset issue. And with that, I will invite the Department of Ag to go into further details about the programs invested in Agri.
Thank you. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Andrea Vobble. I serve as Deputy Commissioner at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. So first of all, we just wanted to thank Chair Vang for her steadfast support of the Agri Grant Program. And just so folks know, Agri stands for the Agricultural Growth, Research, and Innovation Fund. We've talked about it a lot in this committee over the years, but just as a reminder, these are the old ethanol producer payment tails that have been sort of revamped over the years to help with innovation, with renewable energy, with value-added agriculture, and a whole host of things. And so it's money that's stayed in the ag budget that we're really proud of and has done a lot of really, really good things. So as Chair Vang mentioned, the current rider for 26-27 puts our base down to $16.294 million. And that's quite a significant cut from where we are right now with $23 million for 24-25. We've been able to do a lot of good things, as I mentioned, with it. There's things like our livestock investment grant, our value-added grant, new market development, farm to school, urban ag grants, crop research, sustainable agriculture, biofuels infrastructure, the bioincentive program, and I'm not even hitting all the programs that are involved in that grant program. So as of right now, with the current $16 million, we will be facing some tough decisions and significant staff and service impacts for the Agri Grant Program. So we're so grateful to Chair Vang to getting it back up to the over $17 million base. We are still waiting to get the governor's budget. We are hoping to maybe even get it a little bit higher to get closer to that dollar amount that we had for this current biennium. And just a reminder for some of the other things out of Agri that we've been able to do, things like the Dairy with an Eye program, as well as the drought payments. Having the staff capacity that we do right now for the Agri Grant Program allows us to be very nimble and to get payments like the drought payments out very, very quickly and successfully. And I will say we're very proud of the grants teams that we put in place to make sure we can get these out quickly and according to state and federal rules. So it's a program we're very proud of. It is a hallmark of our agency budget, and so we really would appreciate support in getting an increase to that overall base funding for that pot of money. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Vobble. Representative Vang, you have testifiers. Would you like us to?
I think it's just the Department of Ag.
Okay. Oh, we have,
wait.
we have some folks who have signed up to testify. Are we ready to move on to testimony?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have Josh Vanderpool from Pastures of Plenty Farm. If you are here, please come up and identify yourself for the record. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chair Purcell and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Josh Vanderpool, and I farm with my family in Kirkhoven, Minnesota. Our farm, Pastures of Plenty, direct markets all the livestock products we produce. Products include Berkshire Heritage pork, grass-fed beef, and free-range chicken, or free-range brown eggs. Our farm products are marketed through various channels, including farmers markets, direct to consumers, and numerous natural food stores throughout the state. I'm also honored to serve on the executive committee for Minnesota Farmers Union. On behalf of MFU and from my experiences, I'm glad to share my strongest support for Chair Vang's efforts to address the shortfall in the Agri program. The Agri program is hugely important to our members, from our state's work on the farm to school, to biofuels infrastructure, to urban agriculture. So much of the proactive work we value is housed in the Agri program. One example, I just want to, today, we are proud that our farm has been supplying eggs to a local school through the Farm to School grant. This is not only important to farmers, but it also educates students on where their food comes from. But what's even more important to know about Agri is that undesignated funds give MDA the ability to respond quickly to new challenges and opportunities. When COVID-19 shut down the large packing plants, putting pressure on farms like ours, where we spent countless hours filling and delivering orders, to the point where we emptied our two walk-in freezers, leaving our family with no meat for a short while. We also had many stressful phone calls trying to schedule in livestock for processing at that time. This in turn put tremendous pressure on an already stressed system of small and mid-sized processors that serve farms like ours. But MDA was ready to spring into action. They created a rapid response mini grant program that helped support small processors with such things as added refrigeration to expand processing capacity. They also helped small meat lockers purchase PPE for employees and provided a matching service for livestock producers who couldn't find processing. Today, Agri is piloting two programs, one to help poultry processors protect their birds from avian influenza, and another that would help specialty crop producers invest in infrastructure that makes them more resilient to the ongoing drought. Of course, we understand that money is tight and know that the state could do more with additional funding. I'll close with saying that I connect with farmers in other states throughout the country through my role with MFU, and many are envious of the fantastic work happening in Minnesota. So much of that is housed in Agri. And I myself really appreciate how many of the Agri grants have benefited our farms and our communities. Thank you, Chair Vang, for your hard work on this important issue for all of Minnesota agriculture. I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. We have another testifier who has signed up, Lauren Dower. Please approach the stand, identify yourself for the record.
Chair Purcell, Chair Vang as well. My name is Lauren Dower, and I'm the Public Policy Specialist for the Minnesota Farm Bureau Federation, and have the privilege of representing 30,000 members, farmers and ranchers from across the state. I appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of House File 3763, which would secure the base funding for the Agricultural Growth Research and Innovation Program, or as known as Agri. So the Agri program plays a vital role in encouraging growth opportunities for the agricultural and renewable fuels industries. We appreciate the consistent consistent funding allocated to the Department of Agriculture, enabling initiatives that incentivize safe local food processing, infrastructure for biofuel storage, and educational farm-to-school programs. We know programming supported by Agri plays a very important role in the economy and advancing agriculture for the next generation. So we're grateful for Chair Vang's work on this, and thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of this legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Dower. Anyone else who cared to testify on the bill that is before us? Seeing none, let us move to discussion of the bill. Lead Anderson.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. And could Ms. Vobble come down again to the table, please, Madam Chair?
She's on her way. Go ahead, Lead Anderson.
Thank you. Yes, we all fully support Agri, the great things it does. I just want to ask a couple of questions about how all this budgeting stuff works. In the tails, looks like we may have what's called a structural deficit, and yet we're going to bring back in 1.3 million. Is that going to add to the potential deficit, or how is this done to bring Agri up to whole, and yet we could be facing again that structural deficit?
Commissioner Vobble.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, do you mean just generally with Agri or like the state budget as a whole?
Well, how Agri,
Lead Anderson.
thank you, Madam Chair, how the addition of 1.3 million to the Agri fund will impact, I guess, the Department of Ag's budget, and then overall, the state is looking at this potential shortfall.
Commissioner Vobble.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson. Yeah, so this would get us back to the base amount that we had for, I think it's back to fiscal year 22-23. We currently, in 24-25, have about $23 million. So I think I can't speak exactly to the structural imbalance that the state in and of itself is facing, but I think it would be very beneficial for the overall ag budget in terms of MDA, particularly on the staffing capacity side and services that Agri would provide in terms of programmatic awards.
Lead Anderson.
Thank you, Ms. Vobble. But again, where does this 1.3 million come from? And then I've talked to a few folks that have seen their programs already cut, like the biofuels incentive program. Will they be brought back up to what they would consider full funding, or what does the department see ahead for programs like that?
Commissioner Vobble.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, you were correct that as of right now, the rider under the fiscal year 26, it would be the biofuels infrastructure would be cut around $375,000. So I think the department, and it's again up to the legislature how they decided to write out the rider, but that is a potential space that increased funding could go to from the general fund to cover that difference.
Other discussion to the bill? I would like to read a comment from a farmer in my area. This is from Aaron and Molly Wills of Little Hill Berry Farm. They wrote a letter of support. We didn't have time to send it out in the packets, but they just shared that over the past 5 years, they have utilized the New Markets Cost Share program to help with their e-commerce on their website. And they now sell a significant portion of their berry harvest, $134,000 in 2023, through orders placed on the website. They've also received an Agri Sustainable Agriculture Demonstration Grant, which supported their trial to try growing raspberries in a new way in their high tunnels, and they found that their yield increased threefold, and they credit the Agri program and being able to experiment and try things on their farm, and the direct result that has helped their bottom line and certainly my community in keeping those dollars local and getting that good food in the bellies of my children and myself as well. So lots of great stories. Sometimes people don't know the names of these programs, but we at this level know that a lot of those programs are housed under this particular program. Any closing comments? Representative Vang.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just want to thank the committee members for your support. As you've heard from our testifiers, that this is a really important program. It's popular and also very well utilized. And so with that, Madam Chair, I will move to renew my motion to re-refer House File 3763 to Ways and Means.
Representative Vang has renewed her motion to refer this file to Ways and Means 3763. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. And the bill is on its way to Ways and Means. Thank you, Chair Vang, and I will give you your seat back. The next bill before us, if Representative Jacob would approach the stand, it is House File 4044.
All right, members, this is a continuation from our previous committee hearing on nitrates. And so apologies, Representative Jacob, thank you for your patience on this. And with that, if we will put the bill before us for House File 4044 for consideration. And we also have an amendment. But Representative Jacob, would you like to explain your bill first, and then we can move to amendments?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to present my ag water quality certification bill today. I want to start by thanking all the people who signed on to the bill. It really did feel good to have bipartisan support on the bill. Also want to thank Commissioner Tom Peterson, Ag Department, and Brad Redland for all your work on the ag water quality certification program in the past. So the bill I bring forward today, it's a solution-oriented bill, genuine, forthright attempt to solve the issues brought forward by in a petition to the EPA concerning groundwater issues in southeast Minnesota, and most of those issues actually within my district, the 8-county area in southeast Minnesota. What the bill seeks to do is to tie a $5 per acre tax credit to any acres that farmers get ag water quality certified. And so with that, when a farm becomes ag water quality certified, some of the practices that would be involved with that ag water quality certification would be erosion control structures, contour farming, cover crops, no-till practices, precision agriculture, and nutrient and manure management. So the immediate goal of the bill would be to address the nitrate issues within southeast Minnesota, but additional benefits of the bill would include the bill protects against any potential runoff-related issues associated with agricultural practices, such as some of the issues would be fish kills or any other pesticide or chemicals that could be associated with agricultural practices or agricultural runoff. I'll say that every farm group that I've talked to supports the bill. That include Farmers Union, Farm Bureau, Minnesota Corn Growers Association, Minnesota Soybean Growers Association, and actually the media outlets in southeast Minnesota have been very enthusiastic about seeing a solution to the nitrate issue coming out of this legislature. So, and also I'd say that the bill does not pit neighbor against neighbor, farmer against farmer, doesn't pit small ag against large ag. It treats everyone equally, whether you have 1 acre, 100, or more acres. It treats each acre, not the person associated with the acre. So I'll look forward to answering any questions and good discussion. We heard some testimony here the other day. So Representative Purcell has an amendment, I understand, as well.
That's correct. So we'll move to an amendment. There's an A1 amendment to Representative Purcell. Please move and discuss your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the A1 amendment before the committee. The A1 amendment is to expand the geographic region of the listing on the original bill just had the counties that the EPA letter included, but we know that the karst geology extends into parts of both Dakota and Rice counties, and so this is a list of townships of which could also be included in this program. And then the second part of the amendment is to require kind of the standard annual report language back to the legislature.
Okay. Discussion to the amendment, Representative Jacob?
Yeah, I can accept the amendment. The language as it was written came specifically from those counties that were in the target area of the petition. I think the program would be a good program to have statewide in the interest of keeping the price tag low, kind of in a pilot program situation. That's where I came up with the parameters that I did, expanding it to the townships that Representative Purcell wants to include. That would be fine with me. And of course, any reporting and accountability, I don't have any issues with any of that. So I would certainly accept the amendments.
Okay. Further discussion, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Purcell, any idea how many acres would be included in those, I believe, 12 townships you have mentioned here?
Representative Purcell?
Thank you, Representative Anderson. I have that same question, and we are trying to figure that out exactly, and looking at sort of the fiscal impact of the original 8 counties versus adding these and looking at how many acres of certified farms there are. I don't know that answer. I don't know if House Research does. I know this is a discussion that I had with Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan?
Madam Chair and Representative Purcell, I don't know the number of certified acres in the townships that are listed in the A1. I don't know if the Department of Agriculture has that level of detail for the location of certified acres, but that they may be able to at least estimate the number for the committee.
Representative Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it was just a point of question in that I fully support the program, but again, we're dealing with some budget constraints this session, and I'd have no problem with these townships being added, but again, it's going to add to the cost somewhat, but we'll have to see where it goes.
Further discussion, Representative Cha.
Yes, Representative Jacob, we were in a legacy committee, and I think you kind of had an opportunity to talk about participating in the ag water quality certification program. I think it would be good for this community if you were able to share your experience as being one of the certified farms on this program.
Representative Jacob.
Sure. Well, thank you, Representative John and Chair Vang. Yeah, so about a dozen years ago, I saw Mr. Brad Redlin show up at one of my water resource committees. I sat on the Whitewater Joint Powers Board at that time. He introduced this potential program, Ag Water Quality Certification, and in my general distrust of government, I grilled him pretty hard on things. I said, we don't want any more government. And as he explained the program, brought it forward, I could see the benefits, and actually, one of my frustrations has been that we have so many groups working on so many different programs that we're losing focus, and that streamlining things would be more important. But I could see the value of this program where the rubber really hits the road, where, pieces of methods that we can actually protect the environment and do good going forward was very easy for me to see. So we went forward with that pilot program. My farm became the 6th farm in the state to become Ag Water Quality certified there more than 10 years ago, and I recently got a letter from Tom Peterson letting me know that the certification is a 10-year program, and my farm is already up for recertification. For myself, it was very easy, and I think that's what we'd find with many of the other farmers in the area, or in the state for that matter, is that I was already implementing all the practices to protect groundwater and to protect the environment. So I didn't really have to change much, although since that time I did go into no-till farming about 6 years ago. So it was easy, seamless, and I think farmers would be surprised that they're gonna find out that they're already implementing many of the parts of the program that need to be implemented, and if they're not, then the program would bring that forward, shed light on it, and get those particular pieces that they don't have implemented, get those implemented, and protect not just the groundwater, but any runoff that could come off of a farm. So the program just really speaks to what can we do now. With the program, we're going to implement pretty much every strategy, every best management practice that there is available to resolve the issues that we have before us. So, and many more than just the nitrate issues.
Representative Cha?
Thanks for sharing your value experience, Representative Jacob.
Further discussion. Representative Burko.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to ask if Mr. Redlin or Commissioner Peterson could come down and give us an explanation, a little background on ag water quality, but you did it. So I don't know if that's necessary at this point, but my question probably is more for the chair. If you explain to me, we're laying this bill over, I understand. Is that the intent? Is there no reason we wouldn't get this to taxes, since it really is, that's where it really should end up, correct?
Yeah, Representative Burkle, as Representative Anderson said earlier, this year is not quite a budget year, and considering we don't know exactly how much money this costs, especially with this amendment, I think it still needs a little bit more work, so therefore we will lay it over. Representative Burkle?
Well, that's understandable. I would refer back to your bill. We just heard it Agri, and it seems to be the case that some bills move and some don't. But in any case, this bill should go to taxes, and if they choose to keep it there, I guess that would be the case. But I'd urge us to move this on to taxes.
Further discussion? Representative Ream.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are still discussing the amendment, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Because I guess I wanted to make the comment of how the people who would benefit from this would be the people who are listed on the amendment, but not farmers who live in other counties. And I guess I have a concern with that. There are counties in southwestern Minnesota, central Minnesota, that would also benefit from the money being given out. So I guess I have some concerns about it being so specific to just one area. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Further discussion to the amendment. And with that, so all those in favor of the A1 amendment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The A1 is adopted. So we'll move to testimony. I don't see, are there any testifiers that would like to testify on behalf of this bill? If not, we will move to discussion. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I have some questions for the author. So, Representative Jacob, the $5 per certified acre, would that also be for acres that are currently under the Green Acres program?
Representative Jacob.
It would, yeah, I can't see why, if the acres are being tilled, correct. If it's not agricultural land, then not.
Representative Hansen.
Madam Chair, so even if someone is getting a tax benefit with no requirements, which is what the Green Acres program is, you'd still give them $5 an acre, is that correct?
Representative Jacob.
The goal of the bill is to address nitrate issues, so above and beyond what they're doing, to have an incentive to become ag water quality certified and protect the environment, to protect the groundwater.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so my understanding on 2A classification for farmers, that they are taxed on one house and 1 acre. So would the $5 be for one house and 1 acre, or would it be all land certified?
Representative Jacob.
It would be the land that they were farming.
Representative Hansen.
And Madam Chair, so I think we made some changes to the homestead requirements. So if I lived on 160 acres, but then I owned 2,000 or 3,000 acres that were not attached to the land and the house where I owned and where I'm getting the benefit, that still is homesteaded. So there's a reduced tax rate for all the land. If you're homesteading all the land on the farm, you'd still give the $5 per acre on top of that tax break. Is that correct?
Representative Jacob.
The ag water quality certification, I did not link it to any other tax programs. It would be land that was not certified, that became certified, or was certified.
Representative Hansen.
And Madam Chair and Representative Jacob, the ag water quality certification program is completely funded by the government, by the taxpayers. So we'd actually be paying people to enter a program, which then we'd pay them for participating in the program. And you yourself indicated that many of the practices that you had, you were already doing. And so we'd be paying people who are already in the program, who are already getting multiple tax breaks for a program that's paid for by the government. I understand now why the farm groups love this program.
Further discussion? Further questions? Representative Anderson. Oh, Representative Nelson first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, Representative Jacobs, thank you for your kind of overview, but I'm wondering if we could hear maybe from the commissioner or maybe Mr. Redlin on, kind of tell us about the program a little bit. I know probably enough to be dangerous about it, but, I think, as Representative Jacob, you said, there's a lot of things that you were already doing that you were able, but at the same time, there's things that you have to work on and improve. And I think, if we could hear maybe it's not a once you've arrived, you're there. I believe it's a program that you continue to make improvements. And I think if we could hear from one of the commissioners or Mr. Redlin about that, I think that would be good.
Mr. Redlin, I see you approaching the table. If you can identify yourself before the committee and proceed.
Yes, Madam Chair. Brad Jordal Redlin, Program Manager for the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program and the Soil Health Financial Assistance Program at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Always excited to talk about the Water Quality Certification Program. I think, if you allow me, I'd approach it this way. Certification program is a whole farm comprehensive risk assessment and mitigation program. So unlike anything that exists, inarguably anything that exists anywhere in the country or the state, this program does a comprehensive risk assessment looking at every aspect of every acre's management, all pesticide use, all tillage use, all management, all nutrients, the physical field structures themselves, the slope, the soil type. All of those are assessed for the risk that they pose to water quality, be it groundwater, surface runoff, or other forms of impairment. And where those risks are identified, the program then provides funding to assist that grower, provides some funding, the grower provides the rest to implement the practices that NRCS, every SWCD, there's all the standard scientifically supported practices that agriculture implements to address known risks to water quality are what we deliver the exact same way every soil and water conservation district, every NRCS does it. It's the same people implementing the practices and removing those risks on a whole farm comprehensive basis, which does set it in particular apart from all those other efforts where soil and water conservation districts, Bowser, all the funding, public funding they receive is invaluable to our natural resources, but that's delivered through one practice at a time, where a grower says, I would like to adopt cover crops, and they adopt cover crops, and they get their assistance from the SWC, Bowser, NRCS. We do that too, but then we say, what about every other acre and every other cropping scenario on your entire operation, rented or owned? We're going to have to risk assess all of those, make sure that all the risks that are identified are mitigated. And if any one cropping scenario on any one field doesn't have those risks mitigated, then it can't be water quality certified.
Representative Nelson.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so probably a follow-up question on this. I think it's a 10-year certification, and so then upon, if someone's going to recertify, it would be looking at their practices they're currently doing, and probably, maybe they're completely compliant. Maybe they have some additional parameters that need to be followed along. Is that, what's the recertification process look like?
Mr. Redlin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Z. Recertification process will be required to be undertaken by everyone who reached their 10th year and their first term is expired. It will be certified with the risk assessment process that is in place then. We've been very open from the outset that as science improves, as the data improves, as standards, national standards and state standards change, we will be at the very leading edge of those. We will adjust our certification to comport with all those changes, and we have. Representative Jacobs' next certification is going to be different than his first. His certification is probably a little different than Representative Anderson's certification because their timing was different. So I think that yes, we'll certainly encourage every single farm that's ever been certified for 10 years to go up to 20, to go to 30. But it will be a matter of using the most recent criteria that we have assembled.
Thank you.
Representative Anderson?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Representative Hansen brings up some good questions, tax questions. Tax questions. They belong in the tax committee where this bill should be going. But just a quick comment, he used as an example a 2,000-acre farm getting a tax break. Sometimes I'm dangerous when I try to use my calculator on the fly, but I figured $5,000 an acre, that puts a value of $10 million. That's far and away above the ag homestead credit, which is currently going to be up to $3.5 million. So they wouldn't be all getting those acres getting that ag credit. And you mentioned the house garage in 1 acre. I think that only applies to school operating levies. So that would not be impacted by this type of credit. And we're sitting here talking about where are we going to get the $1 million to fund a program like this. Then we look outside the windows here and there's a big hole in the ground. We're going to spend almost $750 million on a building that we might not need. And the bill that Chair Vang worked on today, we're going to be paying people money to buy land to grow marijuana. And I shake my head at that one. So when we come to a good program like this, which actually is going to do something to help clean up the nitrogen situation and such, I think we should put things in priority and do the right thing.
Further discussion to the bill? Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm glad Mr. Redlin is here. The kind of the curse of memory is I remember the whole discussion in this. I actually took the photo of Representative Wagenius signing the contract back, and it was right before 2013. There was a change of control, and it was very controversial to sign the contract. The farm groups opposed it. There was opposition to the ag water quality certification. I remember Representative Torkelson opposing the program. I think maybe Representative Anderson, I can't quite remember where you were at on some of this, but there was thought that it was overlapping with the SWCDs, doing existing issues, but it was sold a couple ways. One was that it would avoid regulation. That was a primary marketing thing, is that this was a non-regulatory, and that it would lead the market, not taxes, wasn't designed as a tax program. It'd lead the market because then buyers could buy and market their programs as ag water quality certified, that it would provide them. And so it wasn't sold as this is going to clean up the water. It wasn't sold as we need, as a tax program. It wasn't designed for any of that. And it's just interesting after 11 years how things change. This is exactly what our concerns were when it was created, that we would be having this discussion at some time where, we need another tax break. So, Mr. Redlin, I've seen the presentations where it talks about tons and acres and reductions. So does the program actually have evidence, monitoring evidence, of reducing groundwater, not modeling, but actual evidence from monitoring before and after implementation of the practices that it's cleaning up groundwater or surface water.
Mr. Redlin?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Representative. On farms that are certified with the monitors, we absolutely have that information, and we can report that. We do not provide a monitor on in or edge field for all 1,040,000 acres that we have. Our price tag obviously would be unbelievable for that kind of performance. But yes, we do have those things. We further, again, similar, because we were implementing the same practices, it's the same standard that everyone else does, that because it's the same people doing the same work, the SWCDs, the NRCS, only we do it fully comprehensively and they do one practice at a time. So that I guess the one thing I wanted to get to is that every practice that's implemented is for water quality, so I'm certainly not confronting the point, but I would just ask the question that from day one, coming on board to create this program, water quality was the entire purpose of the program. Their statement that it somehow wasn't the purpose of the program. Maybe I'm confused in your comment, but that's exactly what it was always ever meant to do, was to address water quality of performance of the farms, and that's why you risk assess the entire operation, which really kind of fits hand in glove with the regulatory certainty component, because if we're going to provide that regulatory certainty that says over these 10 years you're not deemed, you're not exempted from everything, but during this 10-year period you're deemed in compliance with a new regulation should it come along, because you've already had every acre like literally assessed, walked under every cropping scenario. So we said we don't know what the rule is going to be or the new law is going to be yet, but we've walked every acre, mitigated every risk we could find. We're going to provide this incentive of deeming you in compliance with the new regulation. And those that have come along, like the buffer law or groundwater protection rule, certification performance standards are actually higher than any of those rules anyway. So if to get water quality certified, you actually have to do more than you would do for those particular required regulations.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And maybe to clarify, I was talking about the marketing of the program was about avoiding regulation and providing marketing in terms of certification that would drive the market, that large buyers or any buyers could say crops grown, food grown, products grown here are water quality certified, like a gold star program. And they could use that if the Cheerios are sold or the cornflakes are sold as water quality certification. And that would help drive adoption, but that adoption is slower because at some point you move into the wall of altruism versus the altruists, then the people you have to pay, and then the people who don't want to do it, but maybe you can persuade, and then the folks that just will not do it. And then if there's plenty of them in a very susceptible area, even if you're the only adopter, it may not have an impact if there's conversion of land that takes more land under the plow and undoes the work.
Further discussion? Representative Reen.
So maybe I'm missing it, but is there a fiscal note on this?
Representative Jacob.
Yeah, so there's, well, we estimated 191,000 acres have already been certified in the 8-county region. Times simple math, $5 an acre comes to less than $1 million, then plus whatever the amendment from Representative Purcell would add, which would be quite small when you're talking about a couple of townships. And the acres that would come in this 8-county area really are at the core of where this program started, so probably the highest percentage of acres are in this area. So less than $1 million.
Representative Jacobs, perhaps we can refer to our fiscal staff, Ken Savory, to see what the fiscal impact is.
Chair and member, just to clarify, although a fiscal note would give some information because this bill deals with an appropriation for remittance on taxes, it would need a revenue estimate. And at this point in the process, that hasn't been requested because of the point in the process which the bill is at.
Okay. Representative Reed.
Thank you. So I was just checking to see where the nitrate in Minnesota's water, is, and on the Minnesota Department of Health website, it shows that there's elevated water in multiple areas of the state, but they tend to be in southwestern, southeastern, central, and north central areas of the state. So I guess for me, it seems like a very, it's an interesting idea, but it seems like you're only focusing on one area. And I think, I'd like to look at the entire state and nitrate in the entire state. So, and not knowing how much that would cost, that I find very concerning. And also, I have a question about whether the farms are audited or inspected after they've received the certification. Is there any data on that, if they go back to using fertilizer the same way they did before? Or, do we have any information on if it has improved?
Mr. Redlin or Representative Jacob?
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative. Yes, all farms have to be audited. We go through each farm, at least initially at the 4-year period, to compare. Because what they do is they make these commitments to their management, all the fertilizer management, all the tillage management, and each individual crop or pasture has its own series of commitments made that include the fertilization, the tillage, the pesticide use, everything that has to be, risk assessed and mitigated through those practices. So that is all done. Proud to say that as we survey our growers, we've surveyed them twice now at the 500 and 1,000 mark of participation, that we found that 75% of those farms continue, obviously, the practice that they have, but they've added 75% of them, or nearly 75, 74 and change, have adopted new practices as well. The effort that we have is an ongoing relationship. This is a 10-year relationship that these growers are getting in with the local certifiers and their local SWCDs to, be there, a free consultant, free for them. The appropriation we receive pays for it. But they have that consultant who's available to them to help them through all the challenges. And certainly what happens is changing hands of land. We require all rented land as well as owned land to be certified and maintain those commitments. And we know that most leases aren't going to be 10 years. They're going to change. So we have to, in those instances, anytime there's a change in land management, we have to recertify or revisit those new acres with each grower.
Representative Ream?
No further questions. Thank you.
Representative Purcell?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a very brief question. Since we have you here, Mr. Jordal Redlin, what is the current length of time when someone enrolls to when certification happens?
Mr. Redline?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair. It depends. We don't regard it as a race. We want to encourage everyone to get certified as fast as we can. But each certification is it's site specific to the actual conditions on sub-conditions on each parcel. And it's also completely then dependent on the ability, the opportunity, whatever the circumstance might be for each individual farm to pursue that certification. What we see is a lot of major commitments have to be made to this program. There's upwards of 3,000 new practices that have been adopted to earn the certifications that we've delivered so far. And some of those choices take time. We've seen 2 years before a farm can transition to a new management system or get equipment that is necessary to have these new management systems. So yes, we're looking out as long as 2 years to get water quality certified. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. We're here to protect the water and protect it long term, so we accept that. But it can happen in 2 weeks. We see, and it's not dependent upon size either. You can see a 10-acre, direct marketing program who gets to hang their sign on their booth and say, water quality certification is a marketing device, and it might take them a year, it might take them 2 weeks. It might take a 5,000-acre, more generic commodity producer who was, crop identity isn't recognized in the sense it goes into a generic commodity flow. Less able to market that product as water quality certified, but certainly can do it in 2 weeks or 2 years as well.
Representative Purcell?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further discussion? All right. Well, members, hearing Representative Jacob's bill was part of our effort to find long-term solutions to resolving on nitrates here at the state. And so thank you, Representative Jacob, for your contribution. But seeing how this bill, House File 4044, needs a little bit more work, I will lay this bill over. Members, our next meeting is Thursday, March 7th, 2024, and this meeting is adjourned.